It was 1945 when the geologist Vadim Kopakov was heading off on an expedition to Siberia. As he was about to travel into more uncharted territory, local people told him not to go any further, as there was an evil place hidden in the woods that even the local wildlife was known to avoid. They called the place the Fire Eagle Nest and told him stories about people feeling sick as they neared the place, and even stories about people disappearing without a trace. Despite this, Kopakov carried on with his expedition and ventured deeper into the forest, where he stumbled across what is now known as the Patomskiy crater. A massive crater the size of a 25-story building, rising from the ground like a volcano in the middle of the Siberian forest. The crater looked newly formed, and according to Kopakov, it must have been only 250 years old. A figure which was later supported when a study was made on the surrounding tree growth. A study which also yielded the result that the trees must have experienced a period of accelerated growth, similar to that of the trees seen in the forest around Chernobyl. There has been many theories about what could have caused this crater. Theories ranging from meteorites, volcanic eruptions, natural gas, and even UFOs. A new expedition was launched in 2005, hoping to shed more light on the strange crater, but it was quickly cancelled when the leader of the expedition died from a heart attack just a few kilometers away from the site. Bouvet Island has been described as one of the most isolated places on Earth and is located deep in the South Atlantic, the closest landmass being Antarctica, which is more than 1,700 kilometers away. Due to its isolation and the fact that the island is not able to sustain any plant life, it has never been colonized. So you might understand the surprise which struck a British expedition team that traveled to the island in 1964, when they found an abandoned lifeboat in one of the lagoons on the island. Located not far from the boat, the team also found a pair of oars, some wood, a drum, and even a copper tank. The boat itself was described as being in pretty good condition, but with no identifiable marks, and could not be tracked to any nation or shipping company. Despite searching the island, the team could not find any trace of the passenger of the boat. To make the story even weirder, a new expedition was sent to the island just 2 years later. The lifeboat was nowhere to be found, nor was the objects which had been scattered around it. There is still no explanation of how that boat got there, or whatever happened to the people who owned it. In the year 1900, something happened on the Scottish island of EILEAN. At the time, the only living beings on that island was the 3 lighthouse keepers in charge of keeping the lighthouse alive and making sure that nothing unexpected happened. It was the day after Christmas, and a supply ship was heading towards the island. The crew of the ship were surprised when they discovered that none of the lighthouse keepers were standing on the dock to greet them. The crew eventually decided to blow the ship's horn and sent up a flare to make sure the keepers were aware of their presence. Still, no activity on the island could be seen. Among the crew of the ship was Joseph Moore, a replacement lighthouse keeper who was sent to make landfall on the island and investigate. He climbed the slippery stairs leading towards the lighthouse, only to find the door unlocked. As he stepped inside, he noticed that 2 of the 3 jackets were missing, and in the kitchen he found food still waiting on the table and a chair lying on the floor, but he couldn't find a single trace of the whereabouts of the 3 lighthouse keepers. An investigation was started, but the only clue was the final entries in the lighthouse log. An entry on December the 12th was written by one of the keepers, named Thomas Marshall. In it, he states that a terrible storm had hit the lighthouse, describing severe winds, worse than anything he had ever experienced. He also noted that his fellow keepers were acting strange, one of them crying and the other one being extremely quiet. The log entries continues for a couple of days, describing how the storm raged on, the last entry stating that the storm had finally ended. The strange part is, no storms were reported in that area during those days claimed in the log. What happened to the crew on the ship Mary Celeste? Originally called the Amazon, this half-brig ship made her maiden journey in 1860, but during her first 10 years of service she experienced several accidents and was sold several times. The ship was eventually sold at a New York salvage auction and put through extensive repairs, after which she was renamed the Mary Celeste. Benjamin Briggs, a 37-year-old man with experience of 3 previous commands, were made captain of the ship, and on November the 7th in 1872, Mary Celeste departed the New York Bay carrying 1,700 barrels of alcohol, heading for Italy. On the ship was Captain Briggs, his wife, his young daughter and an 8-man crew. The captain, his family and his crew were never to be seen or heard from again. Not much long after its departure, the ship was found floating in the middle of the ocean, abandoned. There were no signs of struggle as her cargo remained undisturbed. The remaining provisions seemed to check out and all personal belongings had been left on the boat. The last entry in the captain's log was from 10 days earlier and reported nothing out of the ordinary. 1 year later, in 1873, a report came in that 2 lifeboats had been found in Spain, one carrying a body together with an American flag, the other one containing 5 bodies. Though the bodies were never identified as such, it has been speculated that this might have been the remains of the missing crew of the Mary Celeste. For more than a decade, local residents in a region of the western part of Switzerland reported seeing a strange man walking in the woods. The man was described as being almost 2 meters tall, wearing a military uniform and covering his face with a gas mask. Despite his appearance, the man didn't actually seem to be dangerous, as he never acted aggressively towards anyone. Instead, he would just stop and stare at the people he encountered, before continuing to walk in silence, never saying a single word. One account even told of seeing him carrying what looked like flowers. Despite this, the local residents around the woods were terrified of the man. The authorities never did anything to arrest him though, stating that he wasn't doing anything illegal. He was not trespassing, nor was he hurting or threatening anyone. Not much is actually known about the man, as no one seems to know who he was or why he was wearing a gas mask. Some theories exist, speculating that he might have been mentally disturbed, or that he had some kind of rare skin disease which would cause him not to want to show his face. The sad part is, LOYON will probably be a mystery forever, because in September in 2013, his clothes and mask were found together with a note which gave rise to the assumption that he might have committed suicide. In his note, he states, "The risk of a hunt for a beast became too great." Probably pointing to the fact that once the media started reporting on him, people started to visit the woods just to seek him out, leaving him to feel hunted and unsafe.